So we are getting into the meat of this program now. I have already shared about some misconceptions, and I've shared a little bit about how true natural birth differs a little bit from what we're taught in the medical system. We're going to go deeper into that the further we get into this session. But first, I'm going to share some truths with you about natural birth that you may not recognize. And maybe you've heard some of these, but I really want you to understand what it means. So, truth number one, of course, is that your body is designed to birth. You don't have a too small pelvis, and you don't have a too big baby, and you will go into labor on your own. It may not happen when the medical system thinks it should, but it will happen. You will dilate. You're not too high risk to have a natural birth. And you can do whatever the heck you want. So your body is designed to birth. If, as Flor Cruz, one of my friends in the birth community says, with your badass natural birth, if you take someone and they have an appendicitis and you lock them in a room for 3 days, they're dead. If you take someone who's in labor and you lock them in a room for 3 days, when you open that door, the baby's going to be out. Mom's going to be breastfeeding. She's going to be pissed that you locked her in that room. But otherwise, like, things are going to work out. Okay. So your body is designed to birth. It's not broken. It's not defective. The medical system's got a lot of fear and profit and convenience and liability. And fish can't see the water that they swim in. So they can't recognize what's really going on. Which leads into the truth number two, that the medical system is not trained to facilitate true natural birth. In fact, if you watch a lot of training on facilitating vaginal birth in hospitals, you see a lot of hands-on stuff. Sometimes they're actually actively trying to pull the baby out. They have mom on her back. She's panting, she's crying, she's in pain. They're witnessing hands-on birth that is not the true natural birth model, because the true natural birth model is about tuning into your instincts, getting into psychedelic labor land, which you don't feel a lot of pain, and you're able to move with your body and with your baby, and you do a dance. It's sort of like a dance where you're able to navigate your own labor pattern. The medical system does not have a holistic labor pattern. The medical system has are they dilating X number of centimeters per hour? No? Oh, we got to run Pitocin. Oh, we should probably break their waters to speed this up. They're looking at this as like a linear process, and they're looking at it as like a machine that's not working properly. Because when the labor stages were invented, I'm going to say invented very loosely because they weren't invented. It was just some man who decided, let's make birth profitable. Let's make birth into a medical thing. Let's get women to the hospitals. And now we have a system to get them through faster. That's what really happened. But it's not designed to support true natural birth. This is why you want to go into the hospital at the last possible minute, because they are trying to fill beds. They're trying to empty beds. And natural birth has its own unique process. And then that leads into truth number three, because we've pushed birth into the hospitals and communities are no longer really seeing it. And they're no longer seeing the way that it's like so nuanced and there's so much. And even on social media, there's only so much that you can share publicly without getting flagged for nudity. I mean, we're working on that, but with the way that our culture and society has been brainwashed, we've been taught to fear and distrust birth. If you go back and watch session one, where I talk about the fear and our culture and society, you'll really understand that. And if you've skipped ahead, then I'm just going to remind you that you need to go back and understand how fear really contributes to this. Because again, if you have not gotten past your fear, if you haven't really addressed that and noticed where those fears are really coming from, because they didn't come from you, they didn't come from our instincts, it came from our cultural brainwashing. When you recognize that, then you're like, oh, that's why they do that. Oh, well, I don't actually need that for a true natural birth. And then you're able to get out of it. So I just also want to remind you that because most natural birth that happens in a hospital setting, or when you're planning a home birth or you're trying to go to a birth center, you really need to be careful what environment you're walking into. Inside my 5 pillars of empowerment, which I talk about in Your Empowered Birth, you need to have the right environment. You need to be able to feel safe. So I'm just going to remind you that outside of this program, there's also some additional materials that you're going to want to look at. If you're still figuring out where to birth, or you're looking at your pros and cons, then this guide has the pros and cons of each of the birth locations, including an Airbnb and other out of hospital birth options that aren't widely advertised. Because it's not just about going to a birth center, it's not just about planning a home birth, and it's not just about planning a hospital birth. It's about recognizing the limitations of each of these, and it's about also recognizing where you're going to feel safest to birth. So this guide will help you to understand this. And if you've already got my book, Your Empowered Birth, then you probably already have a copy of this if you went and got the extras. And if you don't, then I have included that with this training. So just make sure you go into the extra files in this session and get your guide on choosing your birth location. So this is a good time, if you haven't already taken a break, to take a break, because in the next session, I'm going to go deep into the 4 stages of birth and labor. And you're going to want to be able to have a snack, especially if you haven't eaten for a little bit, and get some water, maybe go pee if you're heavily pregnant and babysitting on your bladder or at the beginning of your pregnancy. I get it. And even if you're not currently pregnant and you're just getting the information right now, the fact is like this is going to be much longer. I'm going to really go into the details. So you're going to want to take a break right now and then come back after. And I will be going into the deeper dive on what holistic natural birth stages look like. I'm going to share examples of how I've seen this work with my clients and how it worked with myself. You're really going to understand by the end of it what true natural birth looks like versus everything that's not working in the medical system. And you might even be like, wait a minute, that makes sense now. Why so many of these natural birth traps sabotage natural birth. So you'll really understand that. But for now, I'm just going to let you go and take a break and then come back. If you want to go and add to your workbook now is a good time to do that. Add any key takeaways you have, any insights. Maybe even look over that list of fears and see, oh, these things that I was afraid of, this is how it actually works. And maybe you've debunked a few of them. And I'll see you in the next part of the session.